In this auction, we have some of the biggest names in whiskey. We have some of the oldest distilleries, some of the most historically significant distilleries, and from them, some of the greatest whiskies that I have ever tasted and that I'm sure have ever been released into the public domain. The Distillers One of One is a unique auction concept which runs biannually every 2 years. And the idea is to get whiskey distilleries from around Scotland to provide us with unique lots that we will auction for charity.
It's like the Whiskey Olympics. The idea that everybody brings the best thing that they have, both in terms of whiskey and design, and also that those things are 100% charitable donation. It's an extraordinary gift, really.
What we want here is unrepeatable, unmatchable, completely unique items that you've never seen before and you will never see again. That's what makes this so unique.
It's an interesting challenge for us to try and find something new in that form and express an idea within that form which is reflective of the whiskey.
The Beaumor Stack is the oldest whiskey ever released from Bowmor. It comes in a beautiful hand-blown 1.5 litre sculpture.
It's inspired by Soldier's Rock, which is a sea stack off the coast of Islay, and Bowmor was the first distillery on Islay. We're always trying to imagine a way that you could change the form of the decanter so that people don't immediately view it as a bottle. And with Stack, we didn't want to have the stopper at the top. I was basically sat looking at a plastic lighter. You have a lighter and you have two chambers. If you were to put an internal structure and blow glass wall, you could put the vacuity at the back. And then if you were to tip the decanter forward and then rock it back upwards, all the whiskey would go in the front and the vacuity would stay at the back. But blowing that in hot glass was nigh on impossible. I think there were nearly 60 failures.
The Glen Visionary is one of the oldest bottlings ever released from Glen Distillery itself and represents a plant sample as taken by James Grant when he was in control of the distillery.
The visionary in that context is James Grant, who was the moderniser of the distillery. And he's quite an extraordinary person. He's a classic Victorian adventurer, really. And one of his passions was plants. And he built this extraordinary garden outside the back of the distillery, which is still there, but there are fabulous photos of him going on all of these adventures to collect those plants, bringing them back from all over the world in these vitrines. When we were looking at this Glen Grant that we have for the auction, 68 years old, I'm suddenly seeing it as a similar example. It's like the root of something which has been started growing 68 years ago and is now sort of impossibly valuable.
The Brora Iris, at 50 years old, is the oldest whiskey ever from Brora. It is an elliptical shaped, suspended bottle in stone to represent a cat's eye.
The Brora's a kind of wild place. It's up on the east coast, and that area, historically famous for Scottish Wildcats. It's a sort of powerful symbol of Brora Distillery. And we wanted very much to represent it when talking about Brora 1972. We really wanted the whiskey to be at the centre of that. So we didn't want to adorn it with something. It was like the whiskey has to be absolutely the centre of this wildcat narrative. How could you represent the cat while also keeping the whiskey at the centre? And then you think, okay, well, we will refine that idea down to represent simply the eye of the cat. Now, the nice thing was, once we made it, it was like, well, there is an opportunity now to have something smaller, which represents more figuratively the wildcat itself. And so then we decided to make a bronze sculpture of the wildcat, which forms part of the key, which you open the larger sculpture. It's of a scale which I think was good for representing the oomph of that Brora 72, because it's big whiskey.
For Sotheby's, being involved with the Distillers One of One is exciting for two reasons. Firstly, we get to be involved in the biggest charity auction that the Scotch whisky industry has ever put together. The second thing is we get to be at the cutting edge of product design, new product development, and the creativity of the Scotch whisky industry. We get to be involved in the inception of these amazing lots and really get to see what is possible in the realms of Scotch whisky when tasked with creating a unique one-of-one piece.